Welcome. I would like to welcome you to episode 478 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter, here at the Unpopular Podcast. And I really ask you to agree with me. I'm asking you to hear me out. A business, in a lot of instances, is just like a relationship. There's a lot of aspects in business that go hand in hand with relationships. I know when you hear relationships, you don't really want to classify it as a business, but hear me out. What makes a business thrive? What makes a business feel like, outside of revenue and outside of projections or whatever, what makes a business feel like they are on the up and up? It's how their employees feel, or the production from their employees. Now, as an employee, you'd hope that a business that you're working for, that you're employed for, or employed under, has your best interests at heart. When I say a relationship is just like a business, or business and relationship go hand in hand, you can't have a good business with bad relationships. And you can't have a bad relationship and think you're going to have good business. They go hand in hand. One person has to do their part for the other person to feel good, and vice versa. You see it a lot of times. It's not always equal, but it should be equal. You can't have one person in a relationship working harder than the other. It's not going to work. If you don't feel valued by your business, or if you don't feel valued by your employer, 9 times out of 10, the employee is not going to work hard. The employee is going to leave, and vice versa. If the employee doesn't do well, if the employee doesn't work well, then they're going to get fired. They're going to get let go. We've been talking about NBA ratings and viewership and what's going on with the NBA. And I will admit that this year has felt different. Now, I'm not just blaming it all on the NBA. I talked about this before. When you're going up against the NFL, when you're going up against college basketball, when you're going up against college football, when you're going up against baseball, when you're going up against volleyball, it's hard to attract an audience when you have so much going on around them. And I also talked about how difficult it is when you have a system that you have to pay so much money for just to see the product that you want to see. And when you pay for that and the product isn't good, it's kind of like buyer's remorse. You aren't happy with what you're getting. So there's a lot of reasons, and we're not sitting here just talking about the ratings at this point. What I wanted to start this episode with is, so the Allstar format is changing again. I think it's going to a 4-team playoff type, something like that. It's confusing. It's pretty much like a 4-team a 4-team bracket, and then everyone is entitled to their opinion. I always want to state that when I talk about things like this, because everyone has an opinion in something like this. I don't look for people's opinion to shape my opinion. Let me first get that out the way. And I respect Stephen A. Smith wholeheartedly. I respect where he came from. I respect how vital he is for ESPN. I respect it all. I don't agree with Stephen A. Smith a lot, but I respect him. Stephen A. Smith said something about the All-Star game that ruffled a lot of feathers, but in this case, I'm in agreement with him wholeheartedly. He pretty much said the reason why it feels like the NBA All-Star weekend, NBA All-Star game is in such a dire place is because of the players. Which goes back to my first point. The NBA is a rare league. And what I mean by that is it is a league that understands, let's first say this, it's a league that understands who the fans come to see. It's a league that understands that a fan cares more about a Steph Curry more than they care about the Golden State Warriors. They care more about a LeBron James than they care about the Los Angeles Lakers. They care more about, let's say, Jalen Brunson than they'll care about the New York Knicks. So what the NBA does is they put their stars on Front Street because they understand that their stars is what's getting the clicks. Their stars is what's getting the views. It's not, oh, I want to see the Oklahoma City Thunder going up against the Denver Nuggets. It's, we're about to showcase Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going up against Nikola Jokic. And while I don't have a problem with that model at all, I think that's actually the right way to go. And when I say that the NBA is rare in that, because the NFL, they have the shield. It's about the team. The NFL, a lot of times, people care more about the team than they do the players, which is why you see with contracts and how things are done in the NFL. Nothing wrong with it. Obviously, NFL is king in the United States, but you can see it. But the problem that you run into is the problem that the NBA is now having with the All-Star game. When you're investing so heavily into the players, it's such a uneven relationship right now. And you can tell that because Stephen A. Smith said it. The reason why the All-Star game is failing at this point. The reason why All-Star Weekend is failing at this point is because the players don't take it seriously. The players don't care about it. The All-Star Weekend was originally created to showcase the best talent that the NBA has to offer. Back in the day, you couldn't get access to most of these players. You couldn't get access. If you lived in Milwaukee, you don't get to see someone like Magic Johnson. You don't get to see someone like Michael Jordan all the time. Well, maybe not Milwaukee, but the All-Star game was we're showing you players that you may not be able to see. We're showing you we're showcasing the best of our league. And the thing that worked for the league is back in the day, the players cared. The players understood that being an all-star was important. Putting on a good all-star performance because there's somebody that's never seen them. There's somebody that this is the first time they're going to see a Charles Barkley. This is the first time they're going to see a Clyde Drexler. So we're going to put on the best we can because we understand what this is for. Now, because things are you can access things so readily at this point. Because of social media, because of, YouTube and people having their own channels, having their own platforms, which is great. And on top of just how much money these people are worth. They don't care about the All-Star weekend. They don't care about the All-Star game because it doesn't benefit them. And that's it doesn't benefit them in the way that the league would like it to. At this point, All-Star weekend is a one-sided relationship. All-Star Weekend benefits the league more so than it benefits the players. Now, I talked about this when All-Star Weekend happened last year or last season, when they scored like 200 something points. First time, and nobody played a lick of defense. And I said, you're not going to get you're not going to get a 1990s, 1980s game in the All-Star, because these players are worth so much money. And what happens if you're trying hard and you hurt yourself? And now you're out for the season. There's been players back in the day that have hurt themselves in the All-Star game that could not perform for their team, their actual team that's paying them. So I said back then, maybe money compensation, for instance, and we're going to talk about this in a second. You see how hard they played in the Cup. Millionaires are playing hard for what, $500,000 a piece? Money is money. And I understand that. I think the winner for the All-Star game now gets $125K. But the losers also get money. So it's like, I don't care. I'm still going to get something. All-Star Weekend it can't work if the players don't care about it. And the players aren't going to care about it if it's going to continue to be a one-sided relationship. The league benefits more than these players. You're showcasing these players, but at the end of the day, they don't get anything for it. Yes, you get an All-Star, and I understand the people that still have that 1990s, early 2000s, 80s mindset, and I respect that. Like, these are millionaires, why should they have to get paid? I get it. But we're in a new day and age. We're in a day and age now where I know the thing just came up. The Golden State Warriors is the most profitable organization in the NBA. I think they're worth almost $10 billion. It's not all because of him, but that's mainly because of Steph Curry. And you think that someone like Steph Curry is going to care about playing in an All-Star game? I'm not saying get rid of All-Star Weekend. I still understand the benefits of it, and I still understand it's pretty much a nod to the fans that, hey, we're showing you the best of what we have. We're showing you the best that our league has to offer. These players are the best that we have, which I also understand people's frustration, because I think the new format, the fourth team is like the rising stars. And if I am a borderline All-Star, if I'm a borderline All-Star and I don't make it, but then people from the rising stars are technically considered All-Stars now because they're going up, I would feel some type of way. I'm like, hold up. You're telling me that I didn't make it because of maybe a coach vote or whatever, but the rising star, people that didn't even need to get voted in, made it over me, and I'm averaging 20-something points. Like, man, I understand the frustration with that. I'd be pissed. But All-Star Weekend is not what it's been. And at this rate, I understand what the league is trying to do. They're trying to find lightning in a bottle. They're trying to find any spark they can find to attract the fan, and I get that wholeheartedly. But the NBA is going to run into something that Call of Duty fans have struggled with for years. The game will be great. Oh, and 2K fans have struggled with this for years, mainly 2K fans. The game will be great. And then you listen to the complaints of a few people, and then you change it, which throws everyone's experience off. And then you'll change it again, which throws everyone's experience. So you constantly change something that, honestly, if you would have kept it the way it was, while there will be a sector of people that's upset, you're still servicing the main core people. I agree with Kevin Durant. I understand the issue that it brings, because Kevin Durant was saying, we should just go back to East versus West. I understand the issue that brings when most of the All-Stars are now on the West. I get it. Or most of the best players in the league, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Anthony Davis, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Nikola Jokic. The best players are in the West. John Morant. And while the East, you have Giannis, you have Dame, you have Jalen Brunson, you have Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Tyrese Halliburton, but he's had a bad year so far. The Western or the Eastern All-Stars gets a little skinny. So I understand why that probably wouldn't bode well for the NBA, but right now, the one thing that we've seen, and the last thing I'll say before we go to the next topic, one thing that we've seen is players are going to play hard when there's a money incentive. I understand for the people that's like, they're millionaires, why do they need to play for money? I get it. But you would love more money at your job, even if you're making money. So why, again, we're still talking about a business. We're still talking about a league that generates money. And as we've seen with the in-season tournament, players are going to play hard no matter the status, no matter the bank account. They're going to play hard when there's a money incentive. Especially when there's a money incentive and there's not a money incentive if you lose. I agree. Gilbert Arenas said it. Do you understand how hard players are going to play if for this All-Star game, the winning team gets $150K or gets $500K a player and the losers get nothing? You're going to see some competition. The thing that people have been asking for, you're going to see some competition. You're not about to see Luka take full court shots. It's not about to happen. No, it is not. Because people want the money. So, with the league changing the All-Star game rules, the way the All-Star game is conducted, yet again, shows that they understand that the All-Star game's in a dire place. The All-Star weekend as a whole, that used to be a important time for sports, All-Star weekend in basketball. You know how the NFL has Thanksgiving, Christmas used to just be basketball. The All-Star game was like that too. The All-Star game showcased the leagues and teams and other organizations would move out the way for NBA All-Star weekend. Wherever city they would be in, they'd shut down the city because you have stars bigger than life. It doesn't feel that way anymore. And a lot of that is because the stars that you're trying to promote don't care about it as much as they used to. And that's just that. Which kind of goes hand in hand with the in-season tournament. Let me first say shouts out to the Milwaukee Bucks for winning the in-season tournament. Now, there's a lot of angles that I can take with this. I can pretty much regurgitate what I said about All-Star Weekend with this topic, but I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to do that for the entire topic. I will say this. I think Nick Wright said this from FS1. First Things First, I believe the show is called. And I agree with him. But I wanted to give my take with it. In a lot of ways, just like what I just said with the All-Star Weekend, things don't, when a business is so dependent on the word, the face, the popularity, the commitment of somebody else, of an employee, of a star, it's really a delicate thing that they have to. It's when your business model is based on somebody else, you better hope that they care about it. Because if they not, it's going to go down the hill fast. I understand why the in-season tournament was made. We talked about this when it happened. I get it. The NBA, the ratings are always low in the beginning of the season because it is such a long season, and you're going up against damn near every other sport. So you want to do whatever, especially NFL, you're going up against the end of the season plus playoffs. And now that the NFL is snatching Christmas from you. And side note, for people that don't think that thinks the NFL is not trying to snatch Christmas from the NBA, they got Mariah Carey and Beyonce. Two, arguably one of, if not the biggest artists in the world right now, and the GOAT of Christmas is on the NFL side. Come on now. The NFL is trying to get the NBA the hell up out of Christmas. But back to what I was saying. I understand why the in-season tournament happens or why they implemented it. And I'm actually giving the NBA credit that though these last 2 years, obviously the 2 years that the in-season tournament has been going on, this has been the greatest outcome that the NBA could have had for this in-season tournament. Last year, having LeBron James and the Lakers win it, and this year having Giannis, Dame, and the Milwaukee Bucks win. As much as people don't want to admit, this is still a league where the stars and the, for lack of a better term, older stars still run the league. And I don't mean that by wins and losses. I mean that by popularity. There's a reason why Steph Curry, who is 37, is still a top 5 popular. LeBron James is still, and he's about to be 41, I think. It's Kevin Durant. Like, the NBA is going to, there's stars galore in the league right now. A lot of them young. But it's going to be very hard for the league to duplicate the stardom that is Steph Curry, LeBron James, Kevin Durant. So when you're implementing something new, and you already see what's going on with the All-Star game, you hope that players are going to care. And the best thing that the NBA could have done is have that $500,000 reward, because there's players on the Milwaukee Bucks that only make $500K a year. Now, I understand that we're talking from a place with people that don't make that amount of money, not even near that. So it's hard for you to it's hard for you to understand what that means. And I get it. Shit, I don't make anywhere close to 500K. But I also understand that the last person on the bench that probably makes 500K compared to someone like Giannis that makes $250 million, you're going to play for that. That's a huge discrepancy. So when I say that the best thing that could have happened to the NBA is LeBron winning it the first year and Giannis winning it this year, is it shows that the stars care. The stars are going to play hard as hell. You saw it last year. It was a old star, and no offense, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody, but it was an older star on LeBron James and the Lakers going against a younger star on the rise in Tyrese Halliburton in the Indiana Pacers. This year, it was a older star, a star that's been here for a minute, Dame and Giannis, going up against a younger star on the rise in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. The All-Star game, All-Star weekend, this in-season tournament does not work if the players that you hope is going to promote it doesn't take it seriously. And when I say and like I said, when you see Giannis taking it serious, when you see LeBron taking it serious, when you see, hell, Steph didn't make it, but Steph and them the stars taking it seriously and playing hard as hell, that is the best outcome that you can have. Now, yes, you're still going to have to fight for viewership because you're still going up against the NFL. You're still going up against college football. But for people that watched, that was probably the first game this season outside of opening week or opening night. That was probably the first game this year that felt like it mattered. That was probably the first game, which kind of goes back to my thing as far as excuse me. It's tough when you have an 82 game season and you're trying to generate importance in the beginning of the year. But that in-season tournament felt, or the last game, it felt important. It felt like both these teams cared as much as they could care. When you have Giannis celebrating and as happy as he is, when you have Dame, who hasn't really won anything as far as, championship-wise, he still doesn't have an NBA championship, and I'm not saying that an in-season tournament and an NBA championship have the same weight. But when you see Dame trying to win something, it was just a different feeling. And that is what the NBA needs. When you're basing your popularity on the backs of other people, you better hope those other people care. And that's what it felt like. And that's what it has been for the last 2 years in the in-season tournament. I'm still kind of confused, and even the player said it's still kind of confusing layout. Why don't you just, you'll have an in-season tournament game, and then the next day it'll be just a regular game. I don't know why you just don't block off the in-season tournament and have all the games. I don't know. But I will, as much as people like to kick the back end of the NBA these days, I will give the NBA its credit. Congratulations for putting on a good in-season tournament. Now, I hear people talking about the courts. I don't like the courts, but I understand. I understand. At the end of the day, you're going to do what you can do to attract one pair of eyes. I've said this before. When you do this podcasting thing, and now my podcast, any podcast, is obviously not on the same level as an NFL or an NBA. Or business at that. But what I will say is this. One of the hardest, you'll learn, if you haven't already learned, if you're on this podcast jersey, if you're trying to sell anything, the hardest thing to do is to get somebody to watch one time to get somebody to listen, one time to get somebody to buy a product once. That is the hardest thing to do, to convince someone that whatever you're selling, whatever you're talking about, whatever you're doing is important to them enough to tune in, to support. So I understand the NBA, because at the end of the day, all these things are businesses that are trying to sell you their product. So I get it, I may not like the courts, but somebody likes the courts. I may not like the whole integration with 2K, doing the whole perfect shot meter thing. I think that's corny, but I understand that I am one person. I'm sure somebody, a kid, a younger viewer loves it. But the NBA probably knows it. And I'll say it again before we move on. It's extremely tough when your bottom line, when your productivity is solely based on somebody else's level of care. When your popularity is in your essential livelihood is on the backs of somebody else, you better hope that they take it seriously. And the best, which they've struggled with for the All-Star game and All-Star weekend, but the best thing that could have happened to the NBA right now is their stars like Giannis, Dame, Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Shai Gilgeous, Tyrese Halliburton, their stars caring about the in-season tournament. And the fact that there are stars, that's something that's also the fact there are stars in the in-season tournament. Because I'm sure, and no offense to any of these teams, but it's true, I'm sure the viewership would look much different if the finals was the Hawks and the Pelicans. If the championship was the Wizards and the Wizards and the Jazz. It would look mighty different. So the NBA kind of caught lightning in a bottle. They had their about 4 of their top, let's say 15 most popular players won the last 2 years. Dame, Giannis, LeBron, AD. 4 of their top, let's say 15 popular players won. And they went up against rising stars like Shai Gilgeous, like Tyrese Halliburton. That's the best thing that could happen to them. So congratulations to the NBA and congratulations to the Milwaukee Bucks for winning the second in-season tournament championship. Shout out to y'all. Let's move over to football, and let's talk about what we saw on Thursday Night Football. The LA Chargers beat the Denver Broncos 34-27. And I was sitting here thinking about it when I was constructing the episode, and even last night. This is going to sound like a shot, but it's not. Let me first preface it by saying this is going to sound like a shot, but it's not. I'm going to hopefully put it all together. I was thinking hard. When is the last time that Justin Herbert and the Chargers won the big game? I was thinking about that hard. Because that has been, for years now, that has been the issue with Justin Herbert and this Chargers team. They've beat teams that they're supposed to beat But when it comes to big games, when it comes to standalone games, when it comes to divisional opponents, when it comes to, top tier quarterbacks standing across the way from, they usually lose that game. Not saying that always, but they usually lose it. And let's not get it twisted. This Thursday night football game was a huge game. Both of these teams needed this game to have some type of cushion in the playoffs. The loser of this game now has such an uncomfortable seat in the Cincinnati now has a great shot of making the playoffs if one of these two teams lose at least, or no. Remember I talked about last episode, there's a bunch of things that need to happen for Cincinnati to make the playoffs. This was the first one. One of these teams, obviously one of these teams had to lose. And now you couldn't lose this game. You're at home. There's a lot on the line playoff wise because neither one of these teams are resting peacefully in the playoffs. You needed this game. And usually when there's a big game like this, Justin Herbert and the Chargers would lose this game. And don't get me wrong, it was looking like it was about to get out of hand quickly. It was looking like the Chargers were about to get embarrassed like they did last week against the Bucs. But the Chargers ultimately won. And I think that this is the perfect representation. This is the perfect way to encapsulate how important Jim Harbaugh is to this team. Whether you talk about the onside kick that we haven't seen since 1972, because he knew it's so important having the right person at the helm of the head coach. I still have my doubts about the Chargers as far as being able to beat great teams. Not taking away from the fact that I think they're now 2-5 when going up against teams that have a winning record. But watching Thursday night football and watching the Chargers make a comeback, watching the Chargers do all the right things at the right moments, watching the Chargers have to trust that there's a system, there's a coach, there's a quarterback, there's plays in place that'll get them to where they're supposed to go. I don't remember the last time the Chargers have had that. That's probably the biggest indictment on Brandon Staley. The indictment has always been, he doesn't put his teams in the right. He's kind of like Dan Campbell is if all the gambles that he took didn't work. Like if Dan Campbell takes a lot of gambles, which I respect. It just means that you trust your team wholeheartedly. But a lot of those times it works. Brandon Staley is in a spot where it didn't work, or was in a spot where it didn't work. So it's looking less as gambles as just incompetence, But the Chargers feel different. Again, I still have my reservations. I still don't think that this is going to be a deep playoff team. But usually when they get down, I think they were down as much as 14 points, I believe. When you get down as much as they get down, usually this Chargers team that we've seen over the years, packs it up. just say, maybe next time. And it didn't feel like that. Well, obviously it didn't feel like that because they won. They came back and won. If you have any question on how good Jim Harbaugh is a coach, look at the Chargers. Just look at film from the Chargers last year compared to this year. Also, and no offense to Shamar Moore, because those are two completely different teams. But look at Michigan last year and Michigan this year. I've always said that I think coaching is more important the younger you get. Meaning, or the younger you get, the younger you are. Meaning, I think coaching is much more important, and it's much more, the results are much clearer when you talk about high school, when you talk about college ranks. Like, I'm not saying that they're better, but the imprint on a great coach in the college game is extremely different than the imprint on a head coach in the professionals, because now we're talking about money and we're talking about you're coaching players that make much more than you. And at the end of the day, the GM is always going to pick the player, whoever's making the more money, 9 times out of 10 over the coach. So it's very hard to see your imprint when you're dealing with grown-ass men and women, when you're dealing with professionals compared to kids and college students that need you to guide them to the next level. So I've always said that I think coaching is more important on the college level than it is the pros. But in the same breath, it is extremely important to have a coach where the team buys in. Because if not, you'll get a Matt Eberflus situation. This Chargers team is bought in. And again, I don't talk about it that much, I guess, which I guess is a disservice to the Chargers, but this team was not supposed to be that good this year. This was supposed to be the start with a new head coach, with a bunch of new pieces. Remember, Jim Harbaugh and his coaching staff gutted this team. Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, they gutted this team to try to build what they wanted. So usually when that happens, especially on a first-year head coach, first year with the organization, that doesn't usually bode well for success, at least year one. So the fact that the Chargers are where they are now, I think 9-6, that is a testament to the players. It's a testament to the coaching staff, because that usually doesn't happen. Especially when a head coach comes in and completely changes the organization. So for that, I give the highest of high kudos to Jim Harbaugh and this coaching staff. When I talk, because people say that I'm harsh on the Chargers. When I talk about the Chargers, I compare them to how great I think they could be. Like, I think Justin Herbert has all the skill set to be one of the best quarterbacks in the league. I think Jim Harbaugh is a top tier coach. When you're that, Cam Newton was kind of, the clip was going around, and for people that watch First Take, Cam Newton's on First Take now, I think on Fridays, and I essentially keep the same energy. If I think Justin Herbert, talent-wise, is on the same level as some of these top-tier quarterbacks, I'm going to view him as a top-tier quarterback. So when he doesn't reach the expectations that bodes with his skill set, I'm going to say something. But shouts out to the Chargers, man. This was the first time, and again, I know somebody's going to be in my comments and be like, bro, remember when, and I respect you for it. Thank you for it. Because right now, I don't remember the last time the Chargers won a big game like this. And for the Denver Broncos, you're going to get games like this when you have a rookie quarterback. Bo Nix was slicing and dicing the first half. Second half, not so much. Second half, when the defense starts to figure out what you're doing, not so much. Another person that I've killed, I guess, recently has been Sean Payton. And I still stand by what I said about his treatment towards Russell Wilson. But Sean Payton has been one of the best coaches this year. To take a team that nobody had expectations on, nobody thought was going to be good this year. People were questioning why you would draft a player like Bo Nix as high as he drafted him. As good as Bo Nix was for Oregon, last year, you didn't know. But to draft him, and then on top of that, to essentially put your faith in him more than you did Russell Wilson, because you just didn't want anything to do with Russell Wilson. To build from the ground up and to be as good as they are, that's another team that wasn't supposed to be as good as they are this year. Both teams, I think, now are sitting at 9-6. That's a testament to when you have a rookie coach or a rookie head coach. What? When you have a rookie quarterback, that's the coach. So shout out to him. I do still stand by what I said about how he treated Russell Wilson, but he has done a hell of a job coaching this year. But I was also looking at both of these teams and thinking to myself, I could right now the Denver Broncos struggle with balance. I talked about it last episode with the Minnesota Vikings. They are a balanced team right now. If not, their defense is playing exceptional. Their offense is playing exceptional. Right now, Denver, and understandably so. In fact, now I'm sitting here really thinking about it, neither one of these teams are balanced. And this isn't crapping on them. It's just is what it is. The Denver Broncos defense is one of the best defenses in football, but when their offense sputters like it did the second half on Thursday Night Football, it's like, all right, there's only so much the defense can do. On the Chargers side, you're dependent so heavily on Justin Herbert. And that whole the Chargers have one of the best defenses in football is such a misleading stat because they played some bums. I just keep it. They have not played really good quarterbacks. And when they do play a good quarterback or a good team, we see what happens. But I think both teams are going to be okay in the grand scheme of things. But I don't think going up against some playoff teams, I don't know. And now the Denver Broncos find themselves at the bottom of the wild card, and it's going to get real uncomfortable. They have to start stringing some wins together because you have a couple teams. Yeah, you have a couple teams right on their tail. One of them, I am shocked even has a shot now, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals. So congratulations to the Chargers for beating Denver 34-27. This week, with it being week 16, we have a couple of standalone games. We have 2 Saturday games, which I think I talked about it briefly last week, but I think the NBA, people, it's kind of like this, man. I think DeAndre Hopkins said it too. Their actions are always going to show you what they really care about. You can talk the greatest talk in the world, but if your actions don't back up what you're saying, it doesn't matter. I do believe that the NFL cares about player safety. I believe that wholeheartedly. But you would be foolish if you think that player safety is the NFL's number one care. Their number one care is the bottom line. Their number one care is how can we generate the most money. And you can tell that by how they're doing the Kansas City Chiefs right now. Having 3 games in, I think, 10 days is crazy. They have a game on Saturday. They have Christmas. Then they have a game that Sunday. Crazy. If you in one of the, if not the most violent sport in the United States, if you think 3 games in 10 to 15 days is is smart, then I don't know what metrics you're watching. But hey, we do have 2 games on Saturday. One of them being the Houston Texans at Kansas City Chiefs. I think that they should sit. Patrick Mahomes has proven that while, yes, it is extremely important, home field advantage is important, especially when the home field we're talking about is Arrowhead. That's just a different place to play, especially in the playoffs, especially against that team. But we're talking about a quarterback that is one of one right now. We're talking about a quarterback that, as great of a season that Josh Allen is having, as great of a season that Lamar Jackson is having, there's still one quarterback that, if we were doing a completely healthy draft and you were building a team and you can get one quarterback, 9.99% of the people drafting is going to pick Patrick Mahomes. He is proven to be on that level of greatness. I say all that to say, while yes, I understand that Carson Wentz is a major drop off from Patrick Mahomes. The Kansas City Chiefs don't need Patrick Mahomes these last few games, and he could be perfectly healthy. He's probably going to play. They are saying he's going to play, but at some point you should rest him, especially when we talk about the beating that he takes weekly because the offensive line isn't that good. You need to rest him. Now, seeing as that they're not resting him, I understand. I understand not resting him. I understand resting him. It's kind of like Patrick Mahomes is never going to say, I don't want to play. We've learned that time and time again. Sometimes you have to protect the player from themselves. But I also understand the allure and the importance of getting home field advantage, especially when you look at the Bills and they have, I think, the Patriots twice and I think the Jets until the season's over. And I don't see no losses on that one, so I get it. The Houston Texans, their biggest issue is not defense. Their biggest issue is the offensive line and trying to generate points. I know I just said all that, and I agree. I feel how I feel, but I do think that Kansas City is a better team than the Texans. And I am going to go with Kansas City. I do think that because Patrick Mahomes' injury and just how vulnerable this team can be, I do think that I wouldn't be surprised if the Houston Texans won, but that's solely based on the health of Patrick Mahomes. And if he said he's healthy enough to play, I've seen him win a Super Bowl on a high ankle sprain. So I'm going to go with Kansas City beating Texans. You have Pittsburgh going into Baltimore. Now, all I've heard this week is who needs this game more? Is it Lamar Jackson? Is it Russell Wilson? Is it the Ravens? Is it the Steelers? I think the stat that the Steelers own Lamar Jackson is a little bit not accurate. Seeing as though I think Lamar Jackson's only played them 4 or 5 times. Now, granted, yes, he is 1-4 of those 5 times, and he has more interceptions than touchdowns, and I don't think he has a rushing touchdown. So they do a good job on Lamar Jackson, but to say they own him is kind of crazy. But I do, and I've been thinking about this, and I'm gonna bring you guys into my mind a little bit. I was thinking about this. I'm never here to say go try and lose. I think that's a disrespect to your teammates. It's a disrespect to yourself, because especially in the game of football, right? I don't know. But the winner of this game essentially has a fast track to win the AFC North, seeing as though the Baltimore Ravens have a much easier schedule than the Steelers. And if the Steelers win on Saturday, they ultimately win, or they win the division. And the Steelers still have to play the Kansas City Chiefs and the Cincinnati Bengals. So, but I was thinking about this. If you're, what path do you want? What path, if you're a Baltimore Ravens player, if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan, what path do you think is the easiest one? Is it, let's say you lose and then you win the next 2 games, you're not getting the division title, means you're not getting a home game. Let's say you're in the 5th spot, which is where they're in now. You have to play the Houston Texans in Houston. And then more than likely you have to go to Arrowhead. Then you'll have to go to, let's say, all the rankings land where they land. You have to go to Buffalo in the AFC Championship. Or if you win on Saturday and you win the division, you have to host probably Denver at home, who we've already beat. And then you'd have to play Buffalo like the next round. So do you want to see Buffalo in the AFC Championship, or do you want to see them, albeit you make it and you win the games, or do you want to see them the next round? I don't know. Something I was thinking about. Now, I know you don't want to play with the quote-unquote football gods, but I don't know. But for this game, I got Baltimore. I think Baltimore is just a better team, especially with George Pickens not being there. George Pickens not being there, this offense, especially the passing game, just looks extremely different than it does with him there. It's almost night and day. Baltimore, a lot of the things that happened the first game they played was self-inflicted. Now, mind you, the first game they played, the Steelers had George Pickens, and they didn't score a touchdown. Justin Tucker also, and they lost by 2 points. Justin Tucker also missed 2 kicks and an extra point. There was a bunch of fumbles, a bunch of Justice Hill got the ball yanked from him. It was a lot going on. I think Baltimore, I do to a certain extent believe that this game is important just for the psyche of Lamar Jackson, because as much as I don't believe the Steelers own Lamar Jackson, you would be telling yourself a lie if Lamar Jackson doesn't struggle with the Steelers. And I don't know, man. If I get to play in the playoffs at the crib, I would try to do it, I guess. So, I think Baltimore's going to win. I think Russell Wilson's been playing great, but without George Pickens, his offense is a little different. So, I'm going to go with Baltimore. Then you have the Sunday slates. You have you have New York at Atlanta. Now, let me talk about the Michael Penix thing for a second. I get it, but I don't at the same time. I get why you would bench Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins has been playing awful these last few games. I think in the last few games he has like 9 interceptions or 8 interceptions to 1 touchdown. Like it's been horrible. And they've lost every one of those games outside of last game, which they won 15-9 against the Raiders. So your team, the spark that you'd hope that Kirk Cousins provides the team, he hasn't done. He has not been good at all. Maybe it's the yips. I don't know what the hell it is, but he has. I do know what it is, man. It's the ceiling, bro. The ceiling is not high for Kirk Cousins. He's a good player, but the ceiling is not high for a player like Kirk Cousins. He's not. He's a player that can turn your franchise around, but he's not a franchise player. Like, even though I do think that they handle it wrong, there's a reason why Washington franchise tagged him as many times as they did. There's a reason why, while he was good in Minnesota, there was never any aspirations of postseason glory. Kirk Cousins is an okay quarterback. He's just not great. And Atlanta was hoping that he would be great. They paid him like he would be great. And he has not been. He's been inconsistent, to say the least. And I'm not taking away from who he is as a person. I'm not taking away from he's okay. But okay, especially when you see how Tampa Bay is looking in your division and you were expected to win the division as the Atlanta Falcons, okay ain't good enough. Especially when your defense isn't that good either. So I understand why the quarterback that we're paying, the quarterback that we have, he's not showing any improvement, which we were hoping. And actually, he's our biggest hindrance right now to us hopefully making the postseason and trying to get wins. So let's say, hey, I know we're paying you as much as we're paying you. We're going to have to sit you down. Let's go with Michael Penix, the rookie. We drafted him in the first round. I get it. But what I don't understand, maybe, I think Darren Orlovsky said it, man. Maybe it was a week too late. But and maybe it could pay off. I don't know, but that just seems like a extremely tough task to ask a player to come into the game, to come in and essentially they have to win out to make the playoffs. So that's so much pressure on Michael Penix. It's like, yo, we got to win all these games, bro. Now, maybe Michael Penix is good enough to handle the pressure, but we haven't really seen that in the league like that. Now, I get it. Kirk Cousins has not done anything to secure a starting job. And I'm not saying we'll never see him start again because, I mean, Tommy DeVito is the starting quarterback for the New York Giants right now. So I don't care how bad I say it or what I say bad about the Giants. Kirk Cousins is better than yeah. But I do I think that this This is a very important. The Giants, they are the worst team in football. And I think maybe that's why you wait to start them now, because you're starting them against the worst team in football. So I guess I'll go with the Atlanta Falcons beating the Giants. I don't have conviction in my pick, but we're going to see what Michael Penix looks like. So I have Atlanta. Detroit at Chicago. Look, I know on Thanksgiving, Chicago had a chance to win the game and probably should have won if it wasn't for some, mishaps with the players and the clock and the coach. And I also understand that I'm looking at this Detroit Lions team much differently now when you look at the shopping list of all the players that are hurt. But even with the players that are available, this offense still put up, 42 against the Bills. And the Chicago team is reeling at this point. They are struggling mightily. I'm going to go with Detroit. I think Detroit's just a better team. I think Detroit, even with all their injuries, their offense is pretty good. I saw David Montgomery avoided season-ending injury, so shouts out to him. I'm sure he's not going to play, but I got Detroit. Detroit is a better team than Chicago. Cleveland at Cincinnati. Seems like Dorian Thompson, I think, is starting for Cleveland, meaning Jameis Winston got benched again. The defense still sucks for Cincinnati, but I don't think the Cincinnati is going to win. Cincinnati has the best offense in football right now, and just arguably the worst defense. So it's crazy. And Cincinnati, there's still a shot that they can make the playoffs. They just have to win out. So I have Cincinnati winning. I just think they're a better team. Joe Burrow is better than whoever the hell is starting at the quarterback position for the Cleveland Browns. So yeah. Tennessee at Indianapolis. I think Mason Rudolph is starting because Will Levis got benched. I'm gonna go with Indianapolis Colts. Anthony Richardson. I think he's better than Mason Rudolph, and yeah, I'm gonna go with the Colts. Chargers at not Chargers. The Rams at Jets. The Rams are actually playing for something. They need to win out as well to make the playoffs, and the Jets aren't. And there's been a lot of talk this week again about Aaron Rodgers and a lot of stuff. There's been back and forth with ESPN personalities. Look, this has been a season from hell. I would be shocked if they bring him back. But then again, when you're hearing reports of the owner or GM nixing trades because the 2K rate, or no, the Madden rating isn't high enough, then anything can happen, I guess. But I think the Rams are just a better team, and they need these wins to make the playoffs. They're playing for something. I don't think the Jets are playing for anything. And in fact, every story that I heard from the Jets this week is something that had absolutely nothing to do with playing the Rams. You talk about Garrett Wilson could win out, Jerry Jeudy not being on the team, and the owner and kids. No. I got the Rams. Philadelphia at Washington. Now, hey, I know what you're probably thinking. He's only going to pick Washington because he's a fan. He's only going to pick Washington because why would he go against his favorite team? And you're good and goddamn right. I'm going Washington, baby. We just got to stop. Damn. I was about to say we just got to stop the run, but we are one of the worst run defenses in football. But not today, baby. We stopping what is the Eagle? I got Washington beating the Eagles. Let's go. Jaden Daniels, Rookie of the Year, Offensive Rookie of the Year. Terry McLaurin doing his thing. The best Ohio State Buckeye wide receiver in the league. Washington's going to beat Philly. At home? What are we, Northwest? Y'all think at Lincoln Financial Field? Come do that in Northwest Stadium. I got Washington. Arizona at Carolina. I have Arizona. Arizona is just a better Arizona. They're when they get consistent, or like when they're balanced, because their defense is still good, and when they give James Conner the ball, they're pretty good. Now, Kyler Murray isn't as bad as Tua in the cold, but it is supposed to be, I think, like below what it usually is in Carolina, as far as weather-wise, so that could play a factor. But then again, Bryce Young also played at Alabama, so I don't know. I'm going to go with Arizona. Minnesota at Seattle. I think Minnesota is quietly one of the best teams in at least the NFC. I say quietly, even though the record is still what it is. I think they only have 2 losses. People still question, are they really a Super Bowl caliber team because of Sam Darnold and everything? I think that they're going to beat Seattle, and I think that there's a good shot that they could essentially be the number 1 seed in the NFC, which is crazy to think about. So I'm going to go with Minnesota. New England at Buffalo. New England, Buffalo is Buffalo. Josh Allen, Buffalo is going to beat New England. New England is not. They're in a rebuild. So Jacksonville at Raiders. This is the battle of below mid. I have no idea. I guess it's Mac Jones against Desmond Ridder. Oh, Jesus. I'm sorry. Whoever has to sit that lives in Vegas or Jacksonville, whoever has to sit and watch that game, I am sorry. At 425. I guess I'm going to go with because Max Crosby's out for I'm going to go with the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Raiders really have like nobody playing. That's a bad game. San Francisco at Miami. I don't know. I would say Miami, but I thought Miami was going to be. I'm going to go Miami. Miami's at home. 49ers don't have a running back, really. Like, all their running backs are just out. So, yeah, I'm going to go with the Miami Dolphins. I think there's still a slim chance that Miami can make the playoffs. Maybe not. I don't know. But I know San Francisco they don't have, like, a running back. So, I'm going to go with Miami. Tampa at Dallas. Tampa Bay is a sneaky good team. And when I say sneaky good, like when we talk about some of the best teams, you really don't hear Tampa Bay. You cannot run on them. Now, that doesn't really affect Dallas because Dallas doesn't have a running game. But I think Tampa's just a better Baker Mayfield is much better than Cooper Rush. I'm going to go with Tampa Bay. In Monday Night Football, you have the Saints at Tampa Bay, or Saints at Green Bay. I'm sorry. I just trust Jordan Love more than I trust Spencer Rattler. Yeah, Green Bay I think is going to win this easily. You're at home. It's cold. I don't even know who. Alvin Kamara's out for the season with a groin injury. Yeah, Green Bay got this. Those are my picks for Week 16. Also, as I'm recording this, the college football playoffs is starting now. I'm recording this on Friday late afternoon, evening, meaning I did not see, or this is being recorded before the Indiana and Notre Dame game. So I don't know the outcome. I think that both of these teams are actually equal. They both really didn't play anybody tough, and when they did play some of their tough opponents, they lost, outside of Notre Dame losing to NIU. So I guess my prediction is that My prediction is Indiana wins. I'm going to go with an upset. Yeah, I don't know. So what I want to do is I actually want to give my predictions of the first round. First round, you have Clemson going up against Texas. I think that you really have to ask yourself, who gives you the best opportunity to win? Is it Quinn Ewers or is it Archie Manning? I think that Archie Manning is much better dual threat quarterback than Quinn Ewers, but I do think that Quinn has shown that he is a better pocket passer. Clemson has a real defense, but I just don't think that their offense is going to be able to keep up with Texas offense, and I think that Texas defense is actually one of the best defenses in the nation. So I'm going to go with Texas beating Clemson. The big game is Tennessee against Ohio State. You're playing at Ohio State. Now, Ohio State, they did just lose to Michigan, but I think Joe Klatt pretty much pointed this out. After a loss, they dominate somebody. And it's going to be cold. I know that the quarterback for Ohio State doesn't really do well in the cold, even though he plays for Ohio State. But then you're playing against Tennessee. I think Tennessee is a great team, and I think defensively they're extremely tough and they fly around everywhere. I just don't think that I don't think they'll be able to keep up with Ohio State's offense, even though Tennessee does have a good offense and have a good running game. But I just think you're playing at Ohio State definitely helps them. And you just lost to Michigan, so that's probably still at the front of their mind. So they're trying to exact some revenge. So I think the Ohio State is going to beat Tennessee. Honestly, in the last one, again, Indiana playing tonight when you're listening or watching this last night. So I'm going to predict Indiana upset, but I don't know. I think the most lopsided one is Penn State and SMU. I think SMU is an incredible story. SMU deserves to be in the college football playoffs, but the two best opponents they've played, they've lost. Anytime they play, they played Clemson in the AFC or ACC championship and they lost. Penn State is just on a different level. Penn State running the ball, Penn State defensively. Now, not having their backup quarterback who gets 9-10 touches a game because he's more of a dual or a rushing quarterback, that's going to be big for Penn State. I just don't think it's going to be big against SMU. I think that's probably the most lopsided one there is. So I'm going to go with Penn State beating SMU. So, again, I have Texas beating Clemson. I have Ohio State beating pretty much the favorites. Texas beating Clemson, Ohio State beating Tennessee, Penn State beating SMU, and I guess the only upset is Indiana beating Notre Dame. I'm only going to give the first rounds, and we'll talk about it when we see each other again. So that's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Popular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the link is in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. If you make it this far and you're not subscribed, I don't know what to tell you, man. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe. It definitely means a lot. Also, for my DSP listeners, that's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud. Please follow. Please subscribe. No platform is more important than the others. I appreciate all of you guys. Again, if you love hearing my luscious voice, if you get to an hour and 20 minutes and you're not subscribed, I don't know what to tell you, man. I appreciate you guys. Just please subscribe. Please follow. And tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe and follow. Also, all my, for my socials, Instagram, TikTok, I post pretty much daily. Please follow those. I have Reels, I have TikTok, or I have stories, post. That's probably where we can go back and forth. That's how you get to me the quickest. If you keep it respectful, I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're passionate about whatever we're talking about and you have an opinion and you're listening, and I appreciate it. So please follow the socials, Instagram, TikTok. I post pretty much daily. Until next time, I hope you guys have a great weekend, great football weekend. Until next time, much love.